Unconventional, untraditional, and unfamiliar ways of awakening the feminine. My name is Melissa Blynn. I am the founder of the Awaken and Feminine podcast. And today we are going to get all unconventional. From talking about the red tent to a triad marriage in Peru, this conversation is definitely going to open up your hearts and your minds into the possibility of new ways and new ways of healing within. I want to welcome my special guest, Mrs. Maria Camila, who is a student of the divine feminine, who successfully blends her purpose with a way of living. She is multifaceted, and she is a modern day medicine woman whose skill sets include holographic sound healing, shamanic healing, Reiki, Kundalini yoga, and all ancestral medicines. She is a lover of nature and all beings, and she lives her life in the devotion to service, restoring and remembering our relationship with the sacred land and reciprocity and the ancient ways of her own ancestry. I am so excited to have Maria on today and dive deep in this. So welcome, Miss Maria.
Thank you, my love. It's such an honor and what a pleasure to be able to dive in, share notes together and see how we can continue to make those ripple effects to all our sisters out there.
Yes, I'm so excited to have you on this podcast. And I want to give the audience a little bit of context. Number one, Maria and I had the honor to meet in a beautiful sacred container called Fit for Service. I don't even remember how many years ago when we met. I believe it was in 2021, but I can't recall right. And her spirit just really resonated with me. And I think the biggest thing that I want the audience to know about you today is your medicine of just your being. And if you feel called to open up today with some of that medicine for the audience, I want to create a little sacred space for some medicine for the audience to hear you.
Yes, thank you. Just dropping in and connecting to spirit. May spirit be the one to guide our words, our shares, honoring the wisdom of the air, the water, the fire, the earth, and all that is. This is a song from the Yawalas, and it's a song that's supposed to bring joy and just happiness into the space. Little short version to drop us in.
Yay, much blessings. I love that you opened with sound and song. One of the things that I want to, really just amplify and really talk a little bit about is the power of our voices and really reawakening the voices with the feminine. And I want to start off our conversation a little bit of that today, if it's okay with you. And I want to talk a little bit about what would you say, Maria, for you was your start of your own awakening, your own feminine within, and the moment that you really realized that this was an awakening for you?
So my awakening happened, I believe, in 2018, where I had a divorce. And at that time, I had, prior to the divorce, I had checked all the boxes of what I was told that a woman is supposed to be in the world. And so I went to school, I graduated with my bachelor's, um, I got engaged, I got married, I was ready for a child, and then it all just like fell on me. I had the job, the career, the success, and I'm like, what? And then, of course, in that moment, I'm like, why? Why me? And this moment led me to really find myself, and understand that
Mm,
this it wasn't why me. This was for me, to awaken and reawaken those parts of me that were dormant and asleep, and connect to my own love that
mm,
was lacking and was part of the reason why I
mm,
ended up in such a relationship at the time. And so I went in an eat, pray, love journey. Just started traveling by myself. I found myself going to dinner, just me, and having a glass of wine and enjoying that company, and traveling without
mm,
a destination, backpacking. And I think that was the beginning. And it really sank when I sat with ayahuasca for the first time back in 2018. And that just awakened and opened doors to so many things. So as far as my awakening, I feel like that was the pivotal moment. And to tie it into the awakening of my feminine energy, going back into the conditioning, I
mm.
was actually very much in my masculine side all along. Just produce, produce, and show your worth. And a very masculine container, very much up here. And so, um, as I began my healing journey and my connection with the plant, specifically ayahuasca, that's a very feminine energy, that allowed me to sink into my own feminine energy and begin to flow and release the need to control everything, connect with nature, and understand the cycles of life. And so that is when my feminine energy began to integrate a little bit more. Until this day, I'm still doing it. I'm still learning as I'm shifting cycles
Mm.
into, we're walking into the portal of conception and giving birth to a child. I have been opening that space into more of that feminine energy, healing of the womb and my cycles and creation. And connecting with cacao, for example, that's such a heart opener and connector into that feminine energy. So yeah, it's kind of like a all over the place awakening, if you will.
Well, I love what you stated in the beginning is like you did everything that society, you know, says that would make you happy, right? The marriage, the successful job. And I believe, if correct me if I'm wrong, but you were in real estate, you were making six figures, like from on the external, like you had checked off all of those boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And what you realized at some point was like, after all those boxes had been checked off, what you realized is that number one, you were operating a lot from your masculine. And it sounds like you had, um, there's a really good book called Made into Mother. And in the book, she talks about like, this is when the woman goes into the dark cave and she's willing to sit with herself and realizes like no more waiting for your knight in shining armor to rescue you. You are your greatest medicine. And it sounds like your journey, eat, pray, love, that traveling. And then there was something along the way that led you to sit with that medicine, especially the grandmother, which is a very feminine energy medicine. And fast forward to today, which we'll definitely talk about because holy smokes, it sounds like you have just been unraveling and unlearning so much of that masculine. And I want to jump to that because for those of you who are listening, I think it's important for you to know this a little bit about Maria. Maria is a native, is from Colombia, first of all. So she's from Colombia and she is a Colombian woman. And one of the things that you have talked about is that your denial of being able to be initiated as a medicine woman. which then it actually led you to being held and supported by the Shipibo tribe because they welcome women to serve medicine. And so, it sounds like also from your journey, like not only with your unraveling of that from the masculine, share with us a little bit of that experience for you of like where you came from. The patriarch still to this day says, no, you cannot do this. How was that for you?
Yeah, I just want to name that as you were saying, going out of that cave from maiden to mother, I had full chills down my body. So thank you for that reflection. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, it's so back in 2018 when I first set with ayahuasca, in our country in Colombia, it's called yahe. Um, the way it's served is a little bit different, and so part of the ritual prior to drinking the medicine, you have a flower bath, and then you go into something called um, it's a circle where you drink a broth, and this broth is so the acidic part of the jahe is not as harsh on you. This may have been the lineage or the people that I was working with at the time that just decided to do that additional broth. But from there, we went into a circle of prayer where we shared what we call mambe and ambil. Mambe is coca, so it's the coca leaf and
Mhm.
it's powdered, and you consume it. And the ambil is tobacco. And so mambe being feminine and ambil being masculine is a really beautiful combination of the two, harmonizing, and it would be used in circles to share, and we call it the medicine of truth, to open up our throat chakra and just allow in community to just share what's alive for you. And so the very first moment where I noticed the depth of the patriarchy, even in that medicine world in Colombia, was when they offered the mambe and ambil, and only the grandmothers of the tribe could have the mambe. You could only have ambil, and then the men, of course, could have it. And so, I went with to that ceremony. I went with my father. My very first ayahuasca ceremony, I got to sit with my father, and you know, I see everybody, all the men are receiving the mambe, which is a feminine plant, and they're receiving the ambil, and I can only receive ambil but not mambe. And I said, this is interesting. From there we go into just prepare to receive the jahe, and it was a really beautiful experience. And I noticed that there were women co-facilitating in the space, holding space, but they were not the ones pouring the medicine. So fast forward to
Mhm.
back in 2001, after sitting with ayahuasca in different lineages, Colombia, Shipibo, I went to Costa Rica. I really felt the call that this was my medicine. I felt it way back when I sat for the very first time, but I said, wait, no way, this is the ego. This is something new to me. And as I have learned, it's not new, it's ancient, and it's remembering, and it's encoded in all of my DNA. But as I went
Mhm.
to the Shipibos in Peru, they had women serve. And we went to this community called Oninai, and it's a father and his daughter. And his daughter was about my age, and she serves, and she has served since she was like 15 years old. They've been teaching her, and I'm getting chills. Um,
Wow.
and we went for 7 days. It was a big group of us, and I began to call in through spirit, call in the family that was going to support me in this vision to walk with this medicine. And as I finished my shamanic training back in 2019 in Colombia with a shaman, she always talked to me about, we don't serve the medicine, that's not us. For her to co-facilitate, she would bring in different shamans. And so, as I went back to when I went to Peru and sat with this family, I felt very called. I felt very much at home. I felt safe, safe to completely die and
Mhm.
surrender, because I knew that's what it would take in order to welcome that new vibration within. And surely enough, at the end of our stay there, we dieted with a few plants and we sat with ayahuasca 3 to 4 times. Um, and at the end of the stay, the sister, her name is Natam, she goes, "How come you don't serve this medicine?" Because we spoke to her about our retreat center and what we do. And I said, "It has humbly called me for a very long time, but I have not found the family and the lineage to be able to initiate with. The doors have been closed in Colombia, where I'm from." And she said, "Well, come here." And it was so beautiful. At the time, Danielle, my partner, and one of my partners, my wife, had also been feeling the call. And so they welcomed the two of us to go there and initiate with them. And yeah,
It's so interesting, Maria, because as you're talking about this and I'm hearing this, I want to backpedal a little bit because I think it's really important for the viewers and the listeners. When you were on your maiden to mother voyage and part of Eat, Pray, Love, like when you were in the cave and really facing those parts of self, one of the things that you said that really stood out was number one, you had made a decision to sit with grandmother. I want that to just to clarify, was that your first experience with medicine was with the grandmother? Is that what I hear you saying, number one?
yeah,
Okay. Okay. And then, secondly, what I also heard you saying is that at one point in your journey, you and your beautiful father, I send him love because I do know that he has crossed and we can call his beautiful ancestor energy into today. I know that you had the honor, you said, to sit with him in that ceremony. For those of you who are listening, whether you want to believe what is about to come out of my mouth or not, I could really fucking give a shit. But um, there is such medicine in when we have the ability to have any form of a ceremonial healing ceremony with one or both of our biological parents. Let me just say, fucking game over. Like, let's talk about the karmatic like lineages that heal. Like, holy smokes, like I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, man, if my dad were alive, we're going down. Like, let's just, me and my dad, we would go to town. Like, holy smokes. And I just want to honor you. And again, let me just preface it. If you, whatever you want to pick up from this, pick up from this. But I think it's important that I want Maria to share a little bit about this, of her experience with, number one, inviting her father and what that was like, not only for her healing, but what she got to witness and experience with her father. Um, because that in itself is beyond powerful. And I wholeheartedly believe that part of the awakening the feminine as of right now is we as women have a responsibility with a capital R in the way that we treat the masculine men around us. Because let me be very crystal clear. We women have too bled on men and have that's also caused their own wounding. So I want to be clear on that we have contributed to that. It's not just the men. We women, hi, my name is Melissa, have shit on men also. And so, Maria, can you, if you feel safe and open to share a little bit about this beautiful journey with your father, I really want you to share, because that brings me to tears, and what an honor to share about that with that call. What called you to even having that ceremony with your father?
yeah. So I just want to honor my father.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually this Sunday on Father's Day is his 2 year anniversary of passing, and it's so synchronistic that we're bringing this up because I've been feeling his medicine alive these last few days, and just last night I was meditating and bringing his memory forth, and I could not connect with him for a moment. And as I said that, a scorpion fell from the ceiling, and they're bringers of death and rebirth. And so I was like, wow, okay, Dad, I see you, I hear you, you're here with me. And so yeah, just taking a
Yeah.
moment to give gratitude to that man, the soul that's now present with me.
Mm.
My father and I, my father left when I was 3 years old. And even though he left and he wasn't very present in my life, I was very much a daddy's little girl. And right around
Mhm.
um, when I turned 17 is when he reemerged into my life through his own sort of awakening. And when he did, it was like a unconscious vow that he did to himself to say yes to everything for me in order to almost try to make up for the lost time. And I always loved
Mm.
them no matter what. And I knew there was wounding there as well. And so
Mhm.
it's 2018, and I go to Colombia to visit him for his birthday. His birthday is August 19th. And um, I happened to connect with a shaman there who was going to do like energetic work on me. And I go, I get this energetic work, and at that time, grandmother's already calling me. I'm feeling the call. This is during my Eat, Pray, Love journey that I'm sort of have embarked. And she tells me, well, actually, my husband serves the medicine, and we have a ceremony 2 weeks from now if you would like to attend. And I said, well, tell me more. How many people? And she said it was going to be 50 people ceremony. And I was like, that's too many people for me. And she's like, well, now that we know you personally, we could invite you to a private ceremony that we have about a week and a half from now. You'll have time to diet, and it'll be about like 15 people. So I said, beautiful, count me in. I'll push my flight. So I go back home and I tell my dad, and I'm like, Dad, this is this thing I've been waiting for. Like, and I tell him all about it. What is ayahuasca? What can you experience? All of these things. And he's like shaking. And he's like, I'm going with you. And I said, what? He's like, yeah, I'm not going to let you go by yourself. Like, what? I need to take care of you, protect you. And I'm like, okay, but you know what you're getting into, Dad. And he's like, I don't know. And I'm scared to shit, but we'll figure it out. And I didn't realize the
Wow.
depth. Yeah, I did not realize the depth of what that was until years later.
Mhm.
And in that ceremony, um, I remember I worked through forgiveness of my ex-husband first. I was
Mhm.
sort of going backwards of my ex-husband first and what he was for me, and it led to my father and understanding that I chose this. My soul chose for my father to leave, and that he didn't abandon me. He chose to separate from my mother, and that by
Mhm.
consequence, there was a feeling of abandonment within me. And I remember during the ceremony, he didn't really connect, but there was one vision he had, and it was me in a red dress falling into a crowd. And that's what he shared with me after. And I remember at the time, my father had just been trying to get himself back on his feet after having lost everything, and he was driving a truck around with like a badge, like for promotion. And so we ended up showing up to this ayahuasca ceremony in a big ass truck that could barely enter the entrance. And it was just my father and I in this truck driving
Mhm.
to this place. And it was such a beautiful memory that I cherish. So after the ceremony, we drive back down, and he's just so curious to find out, like, what happened? What did you see? And I tell him, I'm not ready to share. And he goes, what? Because you mean to tell me I spent all night waiting for you to not share with me? And I said, Dad, I'm not ready to share, but I will share this. And this is what I told him. And I said to him, I'm sorry. And he looked at me confused.
Mhm.
And I said, I'm sorry because I blamed you for leaving me for so long. And as humans, we're the only living beings that punish a person over and over again for the same mistakes. And now you've spent your life just saying yes to everything. And it's like, jump high, jump. And he'll ask me, how high do you want me to jump? And it's an effort to fix something or change or take back time. And I just want to apologize for you to you and tell you that I love you and that I don't need you to apologize or to feel guilty anymore. I have forgiven you, Father. Now you get to forgive yourself. And in that moment, he was just crying and crying and crying. And it was so relieving. And our relationship changed from then on.
Okay, I'm crying officially. Fucking A, crying totally officially because it's I think, I believe our souls vibrate with certain people because, like, there's some familiarity. And, like, as you're sharing this story about your dad, um, it reminds me such of a very parallel story with my own father. I too picked up the story when my father left of being abandoned, and I was very fortunate to be by his side when he ascended. And he said some very profound messages to me right before he left the physical plane. And like when he said those things, I was like, oh my God, like, how does he know? Like, he knew things. And I'm like, how does he know these things? Like, it was just really so surreal. But I do wholeheartedly believe when we get to really heal from those stories, again, I think the similarity is that abandonment story, and not only get to witness them and their pain and their suffering, and saying, like, I see you and I love you and you can forgive yourself now, game over. Like, that healing that they take into the next life or in the next life or whatever, like, what a beautiful forgiving process that you could have given your father. And I feel the same, that I was able to give that gift to my father as well. And so hashtag badass women doing hard shit together. Because the truth is, and I know you know this, and I want to kind of take it to the next segue, is that part of the maiden to mother journey, ladies and men who are watching, this is not for the faint of heart. When you go into the cave or into that moment where, like, the bottle of alcohol or the shopping or the shit no longer is fulfilling you, when what you look and what you see, you may not like. And the truth of the matter is that when you can witness that and you can go through that process like Maria is talking about, it's the most beautiful part of really learning to love yourself and all of your shadow parts and your shit, and saying, like, yeah, me too. And I feel like one of the reasons why I resonate with Maria so much, and I felt called to have her on this, is because I've got to witness her through the years and through Fit for Service and just from afar, and I've got to watch her. And when I tell you, like, this woman is a no joke badass medicine woman, like, I've got to watch her go through initiation. And I want to be clear on this when I talk about initiation, and I want to talk a little bit about this, about initiation. We as women, and Maria, I want to talk about, interesting, when you said that, I believe you said your father saw you in a red dress. So please correct me. But when you said that, my mind went to, oh, the red tent. Let's have the conversation about the power of the red tent, because Native Americans honored the time for women in menstruation with the red tent ritual. So I want to just pause right here and talk about this initiation. Did I hear you correctly that your dad saw you in a red dress?
Yes.
In his ceremony?
Yes.
Oh, like, hello. And let's just go there. Let's talk a little bit about that, because from what I've got to witness and I get to see you do now, is one of the things is you utilize the woman's red tent for reawakening the feminine with some sacred ceremonies. So let's dive into that. How did that come a part of your reawakening for yourself, and share with women what called you to do that?
So historically, going back into the patriarchy, um, the way men pass on their last name, their lineage is through their last name. So we always take on their last name, and our last name is dropped. Um, and so um, the red tents historically were a place where women would gather, and as soon as the woman went from a child to a woman and bled, she would be invited into the red tent to be taught about her cycles and be able to connect to that witchy part of herself and that medicine woman that's within us all. And in that space would also be an open space to share vulnerably what is alive for you in the moment. And that is how we passed down our lineage, through storytelling. And so we would gather in these red tents and storytell and support one another in the journey of being a woman, a womb holder. And as you speak to initiation, I have undergone multiple initiations from different entheogens, but as well life initiations. And I feel that an initiation is not a diploma, or it's something that they tell you, like, you're done, here you go. An initiation is not something you can fake. An initiation is when you go into that cave and strip all parts of you and go into the void and become empty. Strip yourself of everything and come out on the other side, and you feel there's an initiation that has taken place. And so as I have gone through these initiations, a call began to rise to gather the sisters again and remember. And the way this came forth, my wife Danielle, it was her 40th birthday, and I was thinking of, at 40, she's sort of going from mother to crone. And I wanted to honor her in that transition. And I had been feeling into the red tent and hearing a dear sister that was doing these red tents. And I said, I have to do this for Danielle. This is the way in which I get to honor her and her lineage as she transitions into crone. And so for her 40th birthday, we ended up putting together a red tent, and I invited her mother, her sister, our daughter was there, all of our girlfriends, and the men also came, and they were the fire keepers. And it was so beautiful because that is how it was. The men are the fire keepers outside, protecting the women as they vulnerably go into the space to shed, to release, to bleed, and to share. And so we did this for her, and having led my very first red tent for her on her birthday, it was a remembrance that came through. And I looked at Danielle, and we looked at each other, and we said, this is what we get to share with our sisters and bring it forth. And so ever since then, we do it bi-monthly.
I love this. And someday I'm going to be in your red tent, just putting that in the ether that I will be there. And I love this. And the reason why I love this so much, I know Anahata Ananda, obviously through Fit for Service. And when I joined in 2020, I started to work with her a lot one-on-one. And I started to do a lot. This was really when I started to do my own awakening, my own inner feminine, was specifically with her. And so I would go to Sedona for weeks at a time and doing a lot of private work with her. And I'll never forget that one of the sessions that I had went to spend time with her, she says to me, and I was on my menstruation, and she says to me, she says, I would like you to collect your blood, and then after, I would like you to give it back to the earth as an offering. And I looked at her and I said, excuse me, come again? You want me to do what? And I'll never forget it. So like I go back to my Airbnb and one of my best friends, Sandy, was with me. And I'm like, okay, so supposedly one of these awakening my feminine, I like, Anahata wants me to collect my blood. And when I'm done, she wants me to give it as an offering. And my girlfriend looked at me and she goes, you got to be kidding me. And I'm like, no. So the last day of our trip, I remember taking my blood. I collected it and I remember going on the back patio and I'm staring at these big mountains and I have my arms out with my blood in one hand. And I'm like, okay, spirit, whatever I meant to for my highest calling in this life, when it comes to the feminine and my blood, please reveal it to me and show it to me. And so it is. And I like opened it and I like gave it all to the plants, and man, did I feel liberated. And I was like in a bra and no underwear, like pretty much naked. And I'm like, oh my God, but I felt so free. I felt so free. I felt so liberated. And it was literally in in that moment, that was just a scratch of like reawakening and reconnecting to my cycle, and my blood. And really, still to this day, how do I live my life around that? Versus what you also experienced, Maria, was that linear, that very masculine way of doing it, checking it off the box, success, do more, produce more. And now peeling back that layer and listening to the wisdom of the body, the female body, and really reconnecting with that. So I want to commend you for bringing back this beautiful symbolism of what it is like to have an honor to bleed as a woman, and more importantly, as I like to say, reawakening that inner witch. And witch for me stands for a woman in total control of herself, just saying. So I want to celebrate you, for doing that. And so
Well, and
it's powerful. And so I want to backpedal.
I'd love to
Go ahead.
add, this is not a tradition that is just Native American. This is something that goes back to Egypt, ancient times in the temples where women would gather and collect their bleed together and collect the blood in calluses or chalices, however you pronounce it, that would then be honored, revered, and would be poured over their bodies and anointing, used for anointing. And so this
Yeah.
goes back to ancient civilization.
I love that you brought Egypt up. I just got done watching, I believe it's on Netflix, and it's a docuseries called Queen Cleopatra. And my partner and I have been watching it over the last couple of days. And obviously it's BC, before Christ, but like the power of the feminine back then, and the Pharaoh and Isis, and what Isis stood for women. And it's so beautiful to have some of these sacred traditions that are being reawoken in this day and age. And so I want to talk a little bit about so yes, we're talking about our blood and chalices and ointing ourselves with blood. I told you it's unconventional. I told you it's untraditional. Just saying. And but there's so much medicine in this healing. And speaking of untraditional and unconventional, so you have a wife, Danielle, and so I'm just going to go to this because I'm so curious of hearing this. So I now, for those of you watching, I love to just give a disclosure. Just pick up what you like to pick up and delete what you don't want to, and just be open-hearted and open-minded. So one of the things that you mentioned was you and your triad, okay, your wife and your husband, you all went to, I believe it was Peru, in the jungle, and you all got married with grandmother Aya. Now that is definitely unconventional and definitely untraditional. And I'm all ears. And I really, I want you to share the story of, you were married once, you were monogamous, and now it's completely shifted. And so I'm really curious about this. Please share whatever you feel called to share about that shift for you. And holy smoke, it's now that's the kind of wedding I can get down with. I'm just being clear on that, but more on that later. So share with us all about that triad of husband, wife, and you. Share away.
So as you mentioned, I was monogamous because it's the only thing I knew, the only thing that was okay, the only thing that was allowed. And as I divorced, I still was very much monogamous. And I was actually, when I met them, I was dating somebody at the time, and we were very much monogamous. Um, and you know him. Um, and
Yeah.
the way we met is, so I was boarding a plane to come to Austin, and I had my sound bowls and all these things. And I was coming to facilitate sound healing for a men's retreat. And they tell me, no, you need to check those in. And I said, I can't check in my sound bowls. So I ended up checking in my other bag, and I had my rapé and everything. And I have a very strong relationship with grandfather tobacco. And as I get on the flight, I'm like the last one in. I'm on the phone with my partner at the time, FaceTiming, like, oh my gosh, I checked in all my bags and I don't have my rapé, and I could really use it for some grounding. And as I'm saying that, David and my eyes meet, and I sit down, and I happen to be sitting down across from him, like across behind him. And I'm still talking to my partner, and he turns around with his rapé, which is, for those of you that don't know, nicotina rustica, the purest form of tobacco. It's a snuff that comes from the Amazon. So he has his rapé on his hand and his curipe, and he turns around and he goes, would you like to try mine? And I go, what? And I tell my partner, I said, okay, let me call you back. Somebody's offering me rapé. I can definitely tell that I'm on a flight to Austin. So I hang up the phone and I sit in rapé. I sit in rapé. David and Danielle have been partners for 20 years prior to me. And so they were on the flight together. Uh,
Wow, holy smokes. Okay, keep coming. I'm just like, whoa.
so they were on the flight together with other friends. He had just come back from Mexico from his Bufo initiation. And we're sort of connecting and talking, and they're sharing a little bit about their life. And 6 years prior to us meeting, they had decided to open up their relationship, because they were healing some things and so on and so forth. And um, they just wanted to be able to explore what else is there. Their family and themselves were very religious, and that's all you knew. And it's Mormon religion where it's super strict. And so they wanted to explore outside of the box, outside of the conventional. And that led them to, be with different people that they brought into the space. And as we were having these conversations, I was like, no, no, monogamy is for me. This is not okay. This is not acceptable for me. I honor you guys, but not, my cup of tea. But we just really hit it off and became really good friends for the first probably 4 to 5 months. And he had been feeling a call to sit with Kambo, which is a medicine that I facilitated. And I was having a ceremony in Miami the following weekend. So, we end up connecting, changing numbers. This is during the freeze. And so I have no way to get an Uber to where I go. They end up taking me to my place. I mean, it's all just like, so weeks later, he ends up flying in to Miami. He sits with Combo. He meets one of my guides, Millie, who also serves Bufo, and she ends up becoming his guide and serving the medicine as well. And we just, like I said, just beautiful, beautiful friendship. And as we begin to, we follow this friendship, we're just finding ourselves together all the time. And I began to have feelings for David, and I shared this with him. And I had ended my relationship with partner at the time. And this was right around when my father passed. So it was all happening at the same time. And I sat down with David and I said,
Mm.
what does this look like? And he said, well, you can have all of me. And I said, what does that mean? And he said, well, he had shared that there was a previous partner he had with which a lot of different things came up for him, where he realized that there was something more than just exploring. And there could be a potential of bringing somebody in a non hierarchical way. In other words, for 6 years, it was the two of them married, and then they would choose to explore with different partners and to just learn thyself deeper through reflecting with other people. And after this relationship, he felt that there was a higher calling there, a stronger calling of why there was somebody coming in. And he didn't really understand it at the time. I didn't understand it either. Um, but the agreements began to change amongst the two of them. And so as we began to have these conversations, I said, well, there are two non-negotiables for me. The first one, well, three. The first one is I want to be married. The second one is I want children. And so you already have two children. Side note, they've become my children as well. But at the time, you have two children. I want two of my own children. And the third one is I don't want hierarchy. There is no first or second. It's just us. And to all of them, he said, absolutely. He said, I would love to marry you. I want two more children. I've actually always wanted four children. And I don't believe in hierarchy. And this is what I've continued to see and be shown. So we have that
Wow.
conversation and it's like, okay, this is actually happening. What does this mean? So Danielle and I begin to have the conversations because David is our what's sort of tying us together. But Danielle and I have this beautiful, beautiful relationship of like sister wife. Now, for those that are Mormon and maybe listening, I did not know that sister wife was actually something that was used in Mormonism because Mormons are open, and
Mhm.
it's like there's some shadow there in which sister wife is used, and that was not at all what I
Mhm.
intended for me. She's my sister. I confide in her. I love her, and she became my wife by choice, by my own choice, and all of our choice. Um, and so yeah, we dove into this relationship and it has been really beautiful. It has its challenges. It has allowed us to grow in a really um, outside of the box way because it's not just one person reflecting you, it's two others.
Sheesh. I mean, I'm in a partner with one and I couldn't even imagine another one. I mean, I could take his energy in doses, but holy smokes. Okay. Wow. I'm sweating over here as you share this story. It's like, holy smokes. But I respect you and holy cow. Like, wow. I'm just curious. Uh, what led you guys to get married in Peru and do ayahuasca? Did you all feel that calling to have that initiation there for this commitment?
Yeah, we felt that there needed to be a ceremony to marry all three of us together. Um, Going back to like, this is not for everybody, right? I'm not saying like, hey, go open your container and become this so that you can heal and you can be all these things at all. This is not like a one dose fits all. It worked for me. And I also believe that the reason why it worked for me is because we have been doing this for lifetimes together. They are truly my soul partners in different ways. There have been lifetimes where David and I
Mhm.
have been together alone, like in partnership. David and Danielle have been together in partnership. The three of us have come together. And so we have been able to see that, and we have been able to remember that in order to rewrite this for us, create our own blueprint and what that means. And so having been initiated by the Shipibo tribe in Peru, our commitment to them is that we go once a year to continue to diet with plants and continue to fortify our energy, our spirit, um, and body. And
Mhm.
so we had been talking about, well, what does this look like as far as marriage? Legally, you cannot marry two people, on paper. it was
Okay.
not my desire to be married on paper. And so the agreement that we came into is that nobody would be married on paper, and we would marry spiritually, which is what really matters, right? Like that commitment to one another at a multidimensional,
Mhm.
spiritual level. And so we talked about the possibility of doing a ceremony here with all our friends and family at the center. And I think that's still going to happen, like the ceremony and a couple of days of rituals and things like that. But we end up going to Peru. This is our, I think, fourth time, but second time going after being initiated. And
Okay.
while we're there, this is something that they offer, like to bond you in the medicine with your partner. And last time, when we were there for the first time with other friends, there was some friends that did it, and it was really beautiful. And when we looked at each other at that time, we were not ready.
Mm.
We didn't feel ready. And so this time, um, it sort of came up, and we were like, yeah, this is the time. It feels right to be married in front of all of our
Mm.
friends, our sisters and brothers, with their supportive energy and the supportive energy of the plants and ayahuasca and our maestros. Which, total side note, Maestro Francisco, which is the one who initiated us, he was actually a father of mine in a past life. Um, and he saw that, and I saw that, and I didn't say anything because I didn't want to like plant seeds. And when he said that to me, I said, what? And in that past life, David and I were partners. So
Wow.
Francisco offers us, we could marry you guys. And we said, let's do it. They ended up making some dresses for us, like Shipivo made embroidered dresses that are white. They did a beautiful, like in the Maloka, they put like roses and candles and whatnot. And so essentially, it's like a regular ayahuasca ceremony. So we show up, we drink the medicine,
Okay.
everybody's in their own beds, and everything's the same. You lay back, you receive, you're in your process. And then right around, I think 3, 4 in the morning, they say, okay, we're ready for the wedding. And everybody's sort of like, whoa, what? We're just like, have here, have not. That night, the medicine was so strong. We were all traveling. Um, so we all sort of like try to get
Wow.
up and get ourselves together and go to the other Maloga where they set up our wedding. And essentially, everybody was surrounding us, and they had David. That, by the way, so when you're in Peru and dieting with plants, one of the things is you cannot touch one another because you are dieting with
Okay.
very energetically dense plants. And so there's no like touching, there's no intercourse, there's no kissing. It's very strict. And so for 10 days, we had not
Mm.
touched, we had not kissed, nothing had happened.
Mm.
So we get to the ceremony, and they tell us, come together as three. And they say, this is the very first time we've done this to a triad. And so it is an honor to see you guys. And
Wow.
they see us, they love us, they remember our lifetimes together. And so that family is so beautiful and dear to our hearts. And
Mm.
Maestro Francisco, he's just a joker, and he goes, chucha, this is the first time we've done this with three people. Let's see if we can figure it. So they have David in the middle, Danielle and I together, and we're all holding hands. And essentially, they go over us and then have their icaros with prayers of the plants into
Mm.
Florida water. And so while that's happening, all of our eyes are closed, and they're up top, like the most powerful magical icaros that are just going, and we're just sort of like in a trance, like just listening to the icaros and feeling them in our bodies. And in this moment, I see the lifetimes in which we have walked this together, the three of us, and the support that Danielle and I bring into David as that divine warrior and his work to bring the dark into the light. so that we can bring it out of shadow
Mhm.
and heal it. And how Danielle and I, as his divine feminine support system, is holding that prayer for him and supporting him in that. And in the same way, he's supporting us in our prayer to the feminine, the female bodies, and how much war he had traversed to get into this lifetime of love and peace. And it was just, all of this was just happening at the same time in front of us as we're being binded. And so this is not, like I said, this is not for everybody to do. This is not me saying go get married in ayahuasca, because this is a very heavy energetic component. You're not just signing a paper, you're binding your soul in the multi dimensions and multiple
Yeah.
lifetimes that are happening simultaneously together. And so it was
Mhm. Yeah.
so powerful. And, we have had people, we had a friend of ours who went to get divorced on ayahuasca. So it's a commitment that if you choose to walk this path in this way and you choose to part ways, you get to come back and break that bond, because once again, it's a multidimensional spiritual energetic bond that has been created that is not seen in this realm. So it was the most
Mhm.
beautiful wedding, to open my eyes in that moment and just look around and see everybody and start laughing of
Mhm.
ecstasy and joy, because this is the way in which we chose to get married. There was no like fancy dress, there was no heels and no reception and no like food afterwards. None of this that was the old Maria went for. And this was the most divine, most
Mhm.
perfect wedding I could have ever dreamed for.
I love all of this because my partner and I, Andrew, you have yet to meet him. We jokingly but not jokingly say that if we choose to have that next layer of commitment, we have both agreed that it would be in with medicine, because it's played a very intricate role in our relationship over the last year and a half. And I concur with you. For those of you listening and watching, both Maria and I are not saying like this is the way. The intention is to really open your heart and open your mind in different ways of seeing and viewing things in the world. Because I think one of the most important things is that when we think a thing should be a certain way and it should look a certain way, for some of us, not all, delete this if this doesn't apply, that strong way we think can eventually cause harm and emotional pain and a lot of different things. And I think it's important to give yourself some spaciousness to explore any form of commitment, especially the commitment if you choose to sit with any form of medicine. And so that is taking me into, one of the things that I want to spend some time on, Maria, is the hive. And so the hive is a healing retreat center that you, your husband, and your wife all participate in these beautiful experiences. And it's a sanctuary, and I have yet to have the opportunity to visit and share in this space. But can you share for those that are listening? I don't want to make an assumption, but it sounds like this has all been part of the journey after the marriage is of birthing this beautiful facility together for the three of you to be of service. So can you share a little bit more about, what are the tools and the shamanic practices that you are now offering to the world there, if I may ask?
Absolutely. So, part of our vision to opening the hive is being a center and community for everybody to come and disconnect and reconnect to nature. And so, the doors are always open for anybody to come, whether you're sitting in ceremony or not, to come hang out at the creek. We have a gym, cold plunge sauna, rock stacking garden, all sorts of things. And our ethos here and our vision as we enter ceremony space is that we are creating a space for intimacy, into me you see. And in that intimacy, in order to promote that, we do no more than 10 people per ceremony to be able to really connect deeply to one another and serve you. And the integration process is also a very pivotal piece of the ceremony. We like to say 25% of the ceremony happens the minute you commit. The other 25% is the day of the ceremony when you're partaking in these entheogens, whatever the entheogen or the medicine may be. And the other 50% comes with the integration, which is integrating the ceremony of life. And so we support that process, walking alongside you to help you um, come back into the ceremony of life. And so we offer different modalities from entheogens and medicines to Kundalini, sound healing, breath work, community gatherings, and women's retreat, men's retreats, to really help support all of the modalities that we need as we remember and heal.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this, Maria. You know, whether it's from childhood trauma to sexual trauma to addiction, um, to depression, when it comes to any of those, how do you, as a shamanic medicine woman, help guide women and men, because I know you do both, women and men, to choose the medicine if they have never experienced it before? Is it something that they inquire with you on, like, well, what do I do? Should I do this or should I do that? Or do you just navigate them to obviously be their own guide to make that decision? How do you navigate that, if I may ask?
We really feel into it. And so we do get on connection calls with everybody and just feel into what they're working through at the time. And through hearing them and their story, we begin to feel what is the path to help them, to best support them, because it's not one prescription that, fits all. And so some people, their path is to begin with combo. Although a lot of people think that it's right into the psychedelic space, and wanting to
Yeah.
see and uncover, a lot of it is no, you get to come back into your body and let's move what's on in your body. And so combo may be what we suggest, perhaps, is some coaching calls to work on the inner child, to bring some things from the shadow that are ready to come into the light. And so everybody is different, and we do have those calls individually to be able to figure out how to best support this brother and sister that's coming to us.
I love that you brought that up in reference to, helping. Sometimes it's not necessarily about the psychedelic or that experience, but sometimes it's really just helping bring people back into their body. And I can say wholeheartedly, I was against psychedelics my whole entire life because my dad was a drug addict. And so I had this underlining fear of becoming an addict. And I had this judgment and this lens around that. And when I finally had made the decision to explore, a lot had to do with synchronistic things in my event in my life, and obviously in coming into Fit for Service. Combo was the first medicine that I made the conscious decision to sit with, and I sat in a full month doing a moon cycle, and I was highly disassociated from my own childhood trauma, from my own sexual trauma, and holy shit, I was back in my body. And it was a beautiful reawakening of my felt sense. And then it allowed me to have a little bit of a clear intention, a clearer vision of where I was going to go next and what I was choosing to do next. So I respect your process and you educating, for anyone that is listening or watching or is curious. In the show notes that I'll put on this, I will make sure to link all of this information around the hive and to Maria directly. Is she is a legitimate medicine woman, and I want to say this because I feel called to say this. You know, I got to watch your journey to go in the jungle, and I got to watch your initiation. And I'm not, let's just put it this way. Not everybody is initiated to serve medicine. I just want to be clear on that. And I'm I have such respect and reverence for medicine that, I'm really mindful of that. And I'm very cautious with that. And so I want to thank you for really following that calling and having reverence and respect for everything that you do, from not only the red tent to obviously your journeys into Peru with, ayahuasca and your beautiful triad marriage, and to now really evolving and growing the hive for this in the community. I see you, I celebrate you, and I honor you, Maria, for everything that you have experienced in this life and many others. And more importantly, reawakening the feminine within yourself so you can be a model for those that are ready to say, wow, me too. So thank you. And I really want to just give it a last question to ask you, or to leave this with any listeners, for any listeners. Is there any message that you would want to give any woman that is watching this, will be listening this, that they're like, oh shit, yeah, I'm there. I'm married. I have the white picket fence, or I have the corporate job, and I'm a workaholic, and I hate my life, and I'm miserable. What would you tell that woman?
It's said that there's 3 reasons why somebody would go into the cave or the void or into death. One of them is out of suffering. And so this is to those that are in suffering right now. Another one is from love. When you think you have it all and you're full of love. And then the last one, which is not common, but it is there, it's for the fuck of it, for the thrill of it, just because. And so my invitation is to see where you are in those 3 and be okay with kicking over the sandcastle again that you have built. Because you see, with death only takes that which we are attached to, and it's because we're attached to it. So if you are in that place, the first one I said, which is of desperation, suffering, there's typically nothing that you're attached to except the suffering, because you sort of have lost it all to a degree. At least that's the story that you're telling yourself, and you're in a space of just deep suffering. And so you have the choice to let go of the suffering and surrender into what's there for you. And if you are in the space of it's because you already have everything, you have the love, my invitation is to see where you have attachments into that love. Attachment to your partner, attachment to your job, attachment to your identity of who you are. I'm not a medicine woman. I'm not a mother. I'm not a wife. These are all identities that make me and limit me and my expression. And so as you find yourself with these identities, the invitation is to let them go so that you can open up into what else is there for you. And that is the process of bringing the shadows into the light, the unintegrated darkness, the dark feminine, bringing it into light, the integrated dark feminine, because it is a thing. And so being able to just fully allow yourself to first bring your shadow, which is the unintegrated darkness of the rage, the anger, the destroyer in you, the Kali energy, so that you can integrate that into integrated darkness. Then from there, you have the passion, the creation, all of these different things. And we can experience pleasure through suffering. So that is my invitation, to really allow yourself to detach from any of your identities and go deep into the death and the void that is there. And through that, you will find the light, and the light at the end of the tunnel, as we say, that tunnel is the darkness and the void.
All those things and some. The shadow on another conversation. Miss Maria, I thank you so much for being on the Awakening Feminine podcast. I appreciate you. I see you and I honor and respect you. And until next time, thank you all for listening. May you be light, may you be free, and may you say fuck yeah to all the things that get you uncomfortable. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you, love. Thank you, everybody.
Mwah.